Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the Order Tome changes coming in with the Griffon Beta update for Age of Wonders 4. The Griffon Beta is an open beta of all the big listed balance changes that they will be putting into the game when the Archon Prophecy expansion launches next month. You can go preview these yourself on Steam. There's instructions how to do that. You can go access this. Any of the games you've seen me stream recently, or, well, I mean, literally any games you've seen me stream recently have been on the Griffon Beta. So the Griffon Beta did do because a lot of the tomes coming in with the Archon Prophet expansion are more order focused. So they did seem to do a lot of focus here on order tomes. Not only order tomes, they also restructured nature. I would say this expansion mostly did nature, order, and astral as a large rebalancing, more so into nature and order and less so into astral. Some other tomes got some works in other colors as well, but I would say for the most part it was order, nature, and then astral, and the rest of them. So there are a pretty large list of changes coming in here that at the very least I'd have to redo my order tome tier list when that goes live next month. I'm not going to do it now for this video. I'm just going to be talking about this because as it is a beta, there can be any list of changes, content additions, removals, anything like that. So it wouldn't be a good idea to talk about this more definitively. We're talking about it as a beta. And as always, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below. And always use this video, use any of my Age of Wonders 4 videos, use it more of a podcast or something you just put on TV. Don't just sit here and watch it. There's not going to be much going on the screen, unfortunately. I'll try to show you everything I'm showing you, but, you know, these are kind of the way I always describe them, and I still like to describe them, so I will continue to describe them. I call this kind of like a nerd podcast for turn-based games. I don't only play turn-based games, and in fact, this might shock you, but I actually don't even prefer turn-based games. On average, I actually dislike turn-based games, but I also have a, let's say, open palette where if I like a game, I just play it. You know, I don't just go, this is my favorite genre. I like Age of Wonders 4. I like Total Warhammer. Other turn-based games can be a bit screwy to me, but you know, the ones that are good, they're good, so I'll play them, right? So order tomes, let's talk about it then. Okay, there's a color wheel in Age of Wonders 4. For the most part, the colors in this game fit in with their Magic the Gathering substitutes. Once most people have never played Magic the Gathering, I think we're reaching the point where a lot of people have never played Magic the Gathering in their life. Like a lot of people who are maybe under the age of, I'm going to say like 20, 25 have probably never played Magic the Gathering. So it's kind of hard for me to keep using this comparison, but Magic the Gathering is like, in a lot of ways, it's like Lord of the Rings for a lot of turn-based games in how so many concepts just come from Magic the Gathering, including the color wheel. So Astral is blue, Nature is green, Shadow is black, Order is white, shocking I know, and then Chaos and Materium seem to share red, while also going into other things. Materium seems to ironically be more of red, with like kind of like a tanky red, whereas Chaos just seems to have been stolen by everything else. I have complaints on Chaos, and I'll probably do a video of how Chaos has had its affinity just completely stolen by every other affinity, and that's kind of been annoying to me. Let me actually, I'm gonna go in here and make, normally when I do videos like this, I make my interface a little bit bigger so you guys can see things a bit better. But yeah, definitely think Chaos suffers pretty immensely from everything they do being stolen by other colors. But we're here to talk about Order. So what does Order do then? Like Nature, they kind of share the healing aspect with Nature. Nature tends to be more on healing and large AoE heals and stuff like that. Order tends to be more single target heals. Order and Materium tend to also be tankiness. Faith tends to, well, I shouldn't say Faith, Order tends to be more resistance, Materium tends to be more defense, Nature tends to be more health. So the color palette they have is actually pretty well respected for the most part, other than Astral, who's kind of just, Astral is like, I swear to God, they're like the Blood Ravens. They just steal stuff from everyone. But, Order has had some problems, of course, in the past, where Zeal was just blatantly their best home, and everyone went Zeal in every single situation, to the point of it kind of being boring in a lot of ways, because I'm not saying Zeal needed to be nerfed, but Zeal was like the best home in pretty much every situation. In addition, All the tier 2 tomes for order, while seeming good at first, would slowly fall off a cliff and not really be that good. Tome of the Construct just sort of ate all their tier 2 tomes. If you did go tier 2 tome, you would always go Tome of the Construct. So if you're trying to do an order build, you'd always go Faith as a tier 1, Construct as a tier 2. It was kind of boring. Cleansing Flame was also an automatic grab, which was also boring because that meant up until tier 4, half your build was automatically picked. If you did go into tier 4, we of course had a problem with Tome of Supremacy and Tome of Prosperity because these tomes are just also going to be automatic picks. So have they fixed the problem? Have they fixed everything? Well, no, they haven't fixed literally everything with their reworks, but I would say they've done a significant improvement. So number one, let's talk about Zeal. Zeal has a summon. It has a decent enough SPI. It's got one of the best spells in the game for building up your economy. It's got an incredible damage enchantment. It's got a spell you can use in combat that remains relevant even into late game, because even into late game you can use this to give your troops fortune, which is crit. I think, does Order give fortune? Wait, Order gives crit? Man, Chaos can't keep anything. Nothing Chaos does is for Chaos. Chaos, every other color mugged Chaos for everything. Anyway, Tome of Faith has then seen a pretty significant rework to try to push it to also be a good, viable tier 1 tome. Now, how do they do that? Number one, Faith was always somewhat sort of okay as a tier 1 tome, but it just didn't have enough punch to really be relevant. So have they rebalanced it all? Have they redone everything? Well, no, not really. They gave it a new summon, and that new summon has kind of, I'm just double checking here real quick just to make sure. Yes, okay. I just wanted to double check here just to make sure I was getting all the changes in. All they've done, for the most part, is they've just pushed the chaplain onto the Tome of the Beacon. That's a tier 2 tome. So I have to like read these so I don't missay things, because sometimes I do missay things. And they got the Summon Lesser Light Spirit. Now the Summon Lesser Light Spirit has been nerfed twice along with the Light Spirit. They probably won't nerf him anymore, but the Summon Lesser Light Spirit is an incredibly powerful summon. So instead of having a chaplain that you need to build in your city and is a useless tier 2 unit, the chaplain has been moved to Beacon, moved to a tier 3 unit, and we'll get to him later. As for the Light Spirit here real quick, this is, originally he was, I guess we're not in tomes yet, they don't have him put in there. Originally, he was a bit of a damage dealer. They have since brought him down a bit to be more reasonable, but this is just a summon, like any other elemental summon that you use, and he just heals. He heals 20 hit points and he removes 1 negative status effect. He also has Condemning Blast, which has a very high chance to condemn enemies. Then he himself has Zeal. The Zeal would mean that he technically has 8 base damage, but if you're still using him by the time you get to Tome tier 4, then okay. Now, Zeal itself has been changed to deal plus 10% damage. It's no longer Zeal does 2 damage, then 2 more against Condemned. It's now Zeal does 2 damage and 10% more against Condemned. So Zeal scales better. So here we have this Lesser Light Spirit with this Condemning Blast, which is a pretty good effect for anyone. This means especially if you put Zeal on your heroes, they can get bonus damage from your Lesser Light Spirits hitting enemy. And it also means these guys just fly around and heal allies. By just flying around and healing allies and being a floating dude who helps everything. This has now meant the rest of Tome of Faith has actually become quite useful. We've got here the Abbey, which is a research post that encourages you to spam farms, which allows it to get a pretty decent amount of research. It does give status protection. It's really, I mean, you know, okay. Gives status protection for 1 turn if you visit it. I mean, okay, whatever. The rest of the tome is still as good as ever. Convent, giving 5 knowledge, 5 mana for each city stability level above unstable. So, you know, neutral and above, it gives 5 and 5 at neutral, you know, etc, etc, etc. So it can actually give a decent amount once you're above, especially for a tier 1 tome building. Decent amount of knowledge. Staves of Mending is as good as ever. Army Heal is, ironically now, I would actually say, since this tome got significantly buffed, Army Heal got better because you don't need to rely on it anymore. So just adding a spirit to this that you can summon has made Tome of Faith, I'm not going to call it like, oh my god, the best tome ever, but in particular, if you're trying to do a build that uses support units into the late game, you've got Staves of Mending, which is really good for support units and has some synergy with some other effects you can do, like Staves of Grace. And then we've just got the Summon Lesser Light Spirits, so especially if you have some sort of warrior hero or something like that, you can just have these dudes healing them all day. So Tome of Faith definitely got a good bit of rework. I think, is it as good as Tome of Zeal? I'm not sure, but it's certainly quite good right now. Tome of the Inquisition got a change, not particularly so much for itself, but for the unit that got buffed. And the unit that got buffed is really the big deal. Lightbringer, okay, here we go. Sorry. Lightbringer has been added to the Tome of the Inquisition. Cool. I don't really like Lightbringer, but, you know, I guess he's a high chance to convert and all that. Don't really like him, but he's not a bad unit. SPI continues to be bad, so what changes have we seen here then? So, no nerfs to Tribunal. Tribunal tends to be... It's an okay building. It is synergy with some of the earlier buildings. Mass Commendation got nothing, Burden of Guilt got nothing, so the only three changes were Summon Lightbringer, Inquisitor, and Inquisitor's Mark. Inquisitor's Mark now reads, all skirmishers and range units, instead of getting a 30% chance to condemn, weaken, and slow, it's now a 60% chance to condemn and weaken. This allows ranged units, particularly that have gone into the Tome of Zeal, to be able to stack up condemn, potentially, against enemies, giving themselves bonus damage if they focus fire one target down. And additionally, it just has that chance to weaken. So it's no longer a 30% chance to apply 3 different effects that it will never actually hit. It's now a decent 60% chance to do it. Inquisitor himself has seen very large buffs. I don't need to go into it to tell you. His base damage has gone up by 2. So, ironically, if you do not go Tome of Zeal, this now means he gets the Zeal damage for free, whereas his base damage used to be balanced on the fact he had Zeal automatically. So he did 2 less damage, but he had Zeal, meaning if you went Inquisitor with Tome of Zeal, he actually dealt less damage than a tier 3 skirmisher, which is a bit screwy. But now he gets that for free, so if you skip Tome of Zeal, then the Inquisitor gets the free Zeal damage, which makes him a pretty high hitting target, and then he also got Shoot Crossbow, which when your Bolt of Judgment is on cooldown, which it will often be, you can now shoot Crossbow on the turns that you're not using Bolt of Judgment, and still do that good range damage at, well, range. So the Inquisitor has become actually kind of a truck, a very powerful unit. The Tome of the Inquisition can be used to push even into late game builds. The Inquisitor kind of falls off late game, but realistically speaking, this guy is quite powerful and really doesn't have much weaknesses anymore. He's just a very, very, very strong unit. Inquisitor's Mark, I'm actually reading here. Got one more check. It now affects all attacks, not just base attacks. I guess it's more applicable to ranged units because a lot of ranged units have attacks that aren't baseline. But any ranged unit whose special ability isn't the base attack kind of just gets outscaled. But, you know, it's good they at least did a little bit. Okay, so that brings us to Tome of the Beacon. Tome of the Beacon is another tome that got a huge change. I talked about this in my Nature Tome video, but the Tome of the Beacon has Mighty Meek. I'll just start with Mighty Meek because that's the important one. Any tier 1 and now tier 2 unit, so tier 1 and tier 2, not just tier 1, now gets 2 status resist and the damage they used to got. They always got that damage. The upkeep for Mighty Meek has also gone down. What did they do to it? I think they removed the gold cost. Yes. The gold cost of this Mighty Meek has been entirely removed, so it's cheaper and gives status resist and affects tier 2 units. Affecting tier 2 units allows it to affect a lot of summons that you can use in battle. Summons with Mighty Meek remain way more relevant. This makes beast builds significantly better, makes skeleton/zombie builds significantly better. It makes anyone who uses summons in combat significantly better. In addition to that, the Conjure Divine Beacon is got like tripled in strength. Yeah, like tripled in strength. The heal went from 5 to 15. So that's pretty good. The defensiveness of the Beacon, there we go, words. The defensiveness of Beacon also went up, going from 60 HP to 80, going from 1 and 1 defense and resist to 2 and 2. So 20 more HP, 1 more defense, 1 more resist. It's way tankier and it heals significantly more. So Conjure Divine Beacon is a great way for tanky builds to stay on the front line. Will tanky builds remain viable? I don't know. There's some issues with it from Tome cycles right now, but we'll see. Summon Blessed Soul has now been added into the Tome, and now is just you summon a Blessed Soul. So now you yourself can get Blessed Souls. You don't need to give them to your allies, which is a rather significant increase to its viability. Summon Blessed Soul, a lot of people always wanted to use this unit, and it's always been kind of cool. Archon Smite is still considered magic, so it does slowly get outscaled, but this is coming from a tier 2 tome, so those Blessed Souls right at tier 2 can do pretty good, I would say. Look at my list here. So we got Faith, Inquisition, Beacon, Cleansing Flame. Not going to spend too much time on Cleansing Flame. It got nerfed overall. In fact, not overall, it just got nerfed. It no longer just gives you the automatic, what do they call that? Flame Herald's Consecration. You no longer just get that by default. You now need to use Consecrating Firestorm to get that. So that massively reduced the power of the tome, that you couldn't just unlock it and now you're immune to fire. You have to actually cast Consecrating Firestorm. So that reduces its ability to just kind of win automatically. Pyre Templar also went down from 6 fire resist to 4. Pyre Templar no longer ignites on his base attacks either, but of course you can use Flame Blessed Champions on Pyre Templar to get him the ignite chance back anyway. And Flame Blessed Champions now creates the flames under enemies automatically, not if they have 5 burning on them. So particularly Pyre Templars with Flame Blessed Champions will ignite everything on fire, because whenever they AoE in front of them, they just light everything on fire. Overall, I would say the tome, it got weaker, it got slower, but if you actually use it properly and you use its effects, it will end up being at about the same strength it was in the past. It's just not, it's no longer just like an automatic, I got tier 3 here, I have Cleansing Flame. And that's also because Tome's Subjugation, we should talk about Subjugation first. Tome's Subjugation has received a pretty large buff as well, particularly and only the Tyrant Knight. The Tyrant Knight has received a significant buff to his power. He got the new ability Oppress, which, while not that amazing, does allow him to force enemies to lose morale. So if you're tired of just getting your morale debuff resisted over and over and an enemy is at low morale, you can now force them to low morale. They have a 90% chance to lose 25 morale, and then on a failure they lose 10 automatically, so there's literally no chance to not lose that 10. So you can just force people to rout with the new Oppress ability, and if you fail or if you succeed, if you do any of them, they get 2 status vulnerability. 2 status vulnerability is -4 status resist, which makes sequential attacks significantly more likely to actually debuff them. So while not an insane ability, Oppress, it does in a pinch allow you to beat tanky builds, and it does just give it a little bit of utility, particularly if the Tyrant Knights are kind of stuck, if they can't get through to the front line, if there's like a, I don't even know, a Thermopylae type situation. They also got Armor of Despair. So enemies with low morale will do even less damage to you. Though technically, I shouldn't say technically, typically enemies with low morale, if they're fighting a Tyrant Knight, are just instantly routing. But I guess it does help to know that enemies you've put at low morale have even less hope. They also got Unyielding. I'm not sure about Unyielding. I don't know if that one's going to stay, but it is quite powerful that Tyrant Knights just dispel 1 effect from themselves every turn. This makes Tyrant Knights not exactly tankier, but yeah, I mean, they're just as tanky as they were when the game launched, but now they're way more difficult to deal with due to the Unyielding. So, oops. That has definitely opened up the tier 3 options here, because we have the Cleansing Flame and the Subjugation can both offer tier 4 racial units, and depending on which route you go, you can choose which one. So there's a lot more choices here. Now, that's not to say you have to go with the tier 4 racial unit, just that you have more choices for it. Tome's Sanctuary also got a little bit of a buff, nothing too amazing. It now has Summon Lesser Light Spirit, and Healing Spires got its construction cost reduced. I need to read this number. It was 750 production. I think that's why I literally never saw it ever. It was 750 production, now it's 200. So Healing Spires will actually get built. It also now gives you 10 city stability, which is pretty, well, useful. There was also a change here to the Tome of Exaltation. Not Exaltation, Supremacy. I get Exaltation and Supremacy mixed up every single time. If you watch me for long enough, I promise you, you will see me mix up Exaltation and Supremacy literally every time. Now, Exemplar, I did talk about this in my other video, but once again, going with those tier 4 units, although I'm going to be real with you, I have not managed to find even a single build where I would go Exemplar. It's quite frustrating. The Tome is in such an awkward position. But at any rate, the Exemplar is now 48 speed flying, which means if you can get him a racial transformation that's not just Angel, he gets a significant buff. Embolden Allies now ends him in defense mode and can be used on the first turn of a battle. And he got Graceful Defense. So the Exemplar has seen a rather substantial buff. I think he also got 10 more HP. So stat-wise, especially considering he already has Zeal by default, this unit is extraordinarily powerful. The only problem is I just have not really found a way to make this guy work in a build. Trust me, I've tried over and over and over, and I just cannot figure out a way to do it, man. Now, the last thing they did, Tome of the God Emperor was generally considered kind of meh. It is still kind of meh. There's definitely an issue where Wrath of the Emperor condemns enemy armies, and then condemn army condemns enemy armies. So there's definitely like this weird thing where one of the best spells in the game for, well, I should say one of the supposed best spells in the game for Order is just supremacies. World map casting points do matter. You don't just have unlimited. Going to 120 instead of 80 is a big ask, and when all you're doing is 10 more damage if they're in enemy territory, which will be resisted to like 5, and then you demoralize 1. So if I could cast 3 condemn armies, I can only cast 2 Wrath of the Emperors. So Tome of the God Emperor has definitely seen some problems, let's say that, but what they did do, this is not really that big a deal. I'm just mentioning it in passing. Mass Revive now revives allies with 1 action point. So it's a little bit better on the tempo. I don't know if this actually makes it good, but at the very least, it does make Tome of the God Emperor. It's a little bit better on the tempo, and that's about it. So those are changes to the Order Tomes coming in. I personally think the Tome of Faith has made a lot of people build it. Having a summonable support unit is really strong, and I've used a lot of them. And because they evolve into the Light Spirit, not greater Light Spirit, just regular Light Spirit, it makes this tome scale pretty well, and so support units tend not to die. So if you do end up with some tier 3 Light Spirits, you have a very, 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 very powerful healer. Inquisitor, I definitely think, has some late game builds that he's viable in right now. He is doing really good, and we are going to continue to see where he goes, because I think he'll be going a lot of places. Tome of the Beacon, Mighty Meek. I want to say the problem with Tome of the Beacon is that Mighty Meek is like 90% of its power budget. I don't think Conjure Divine Beacon is bad. I don't think Chaplain is bad. Oh, I should actually mention Chaplain. I forgot to talk about him. Chaplain, when he went to tier 3, received some pretty substantial buffs. His stat line went to a tier 3 support unit, making him a bit tankier. Healing Prayer went to healing 45 hit points, and Bless became a free action. So Chaplains are good right now, I would say. Chaplains are definitely good right now. If you have a bunch of chaplains on your backline, not only can you be constantly blessing your front line, either removing all those debuffs enemies will try to stack on you, or just giving you 2 fortune, 2 strengthen, which is pretty good. He does come out of a tier 2 tome as well. Later in the game, it's much easier to start applying like global fortune and strengthen to way more people, but particularly as a free action, and especially if it has Staves of Grace to make this give a grace, this can just make the chaplain very, 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 very strong. Just blessing up your hero, or you know, if you have a warrior hero or a ranger hero, just blessing them up and hitting people is a pretty deadly thing to be doing. So I definitely think the chaplain, I haven't seen any builds quite using him yet, but we'll see. He definitely, he's a beefy boy right now. So that's all I have to say about the Order Tomes. I just want to do a video talking about them, because I definitely think, I keep clicking back to here, I definitely think these Order Tome changes have opened up a lot of viability in the game. And by opening up all this viability in the game, it it makes things a lot better because I joked in the past that you had 2 tomes you could open with. You could either open with Tome of Zeal or you could open with Cryomancy. Well, now you get Faith, Zeal, and Cryomancy. And maybe eventually we'll see a 3rd tome that you can open with. I mean, technically you can't open with Evocation in a good world. Evocation did get nerfed a little bit, but I think it's still fine. So, I mean, Evocation is still a strong opener. So I do joke. I mean, it's not entirely serious, right? But yeah, Evocation, Cryomancy, Faith, Zeal. The more tomes you can begin a game with in a realistic fashion, the better. And I'm not saying you always need your tome to be the best tome ever, for sure. Like, if you just want to go with a tome that's not ideal, just do it. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? But, yeah, the more actual top tier choices you have for starting tome, I think the better. So that's all I have to say about Order. What do you guys think? Personally, Order right now is they're a lot of buffing on damage, which they kind of yoinked from Chaos when you think about it. So they buff damage a lot. They do single target healing pretty good. They buff morale a lot. Chaos still has their debuffs. Nobody has stolen Chaos's debuffs yet. I'm going to keep making jokes on Chaos. But I definitely think Tome of Prosperity like leads the pack of the end of Nature and Order, and then you got all these choices over here, and I think there's just a lot more you can do, particularly this Inquisitor. This Skirmisher unit becomes quite interesting, because that means you can use, for example, Prosperity's Graceful Armors, but then there's say Blessed Armors. Yeah, Prosperity's Blessed Armors. He can use Blessed Armors while at the same time still use things like Projectiles of Calamity. So there's definitely there's a lot more things you can do right now, is what I'm trying to say. And Cleansing Flame being a bit more of an ask to use. Like, you can't just unlock it and now like you've turned fire damage off against you. I mean, not quite literally, but you get the idea, right? Tome of Cleansing Flame going down and Tome of Subjugation going up. This also means that if you're playing an Order build, you could try to go into other factions as well. I definitely think there's a lot more going on. So that's it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. And as always, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and have a great rest of your day.